to the Science and Technology Building and the event for this afternoon. The name of the event is Deep Sensing in the Technical Narrative of Radiotelescopes. And before I actually introducing our prestigious guest today, I would like to invite the curator of the exhibition out there. The name of the exhibition is Convergence. And the curator named Bo Hao to give us a little talk.
Hi, thank you everyone coming to this event. I'm very happy to introduce our artists, Rasa and Raitis. And this event is initiated by National Science and Technology Council. And today our artists will share their practice in between like art, science, and technology. So I know Rasa and Raitis from my time at MIT, and I also learned a lot from them, from their classes like artistic methodology or like field radio classes focusing on sound, telecommunication, and signal. This exhibition hopes to encourage dialogues between scientists, artists, and also people from different backgrounds. So if you have any question, you can raise your hand during the Q&A session, or if you want to establish future collaboration or want to exchange ideas, you can also reach our artists out after the event. So now I give the time to David to introduce the artist.
Okay, thank you, Bo Hao. Okay, as Bo Hao mentioned, there's a QA session after the talks, so any questions and conversation is really welcomed. Okay, so since the guest today we're welcoming, it's really important, especially in the field of art and science collaboration. So please give me a little bit of time to introduce two of them. So Rasa Smite and Raitis Smits are artists and researchers working in intersection of art science and emerging technology since the mid-90s. They are key founders of RIXC Center for New Media Culture in Riga, Latvia, curators of RIXC Gallery, organizer of RIXC Modern Science Festival, and chief editors of Acoustic Space, peer-reviewed journal and book series. So for Rasa Smite is Riga and Karlsruhe-based artist. She holds her PhD in sociology of media and network cultures. Currently, she's a professor and head of MECT for Media Art and Creative Technology joint PhD study program by Lepaja University and Riseba University of Applied Sciences, and researcher at Basel Academy of Art and Design FHNW, Switzerland. And for Raitis Smits, he is a Riga-based artist and curator. He also works as assistant professor at the Latvian Academy of Arts Visual Communication Department. He has received PhD degree from the Latvian Academy of Arts in 2015. The theme of his doctoral thesis was New Media Art, Preserving and Representation Problematics. And in their artistic practice, they work togetherly as an artist duo, creating visionary and network artworks from pioneering internet radio experiments in the 1990s, artistic investigation in electromagnetic spectrum and collaborations with radio astronomers, to more recent techno-ecological explorations and climate change research, creating immersive experiences using scientific data, sonification, visualization, AI and XR tools, and sound. Their artwork have been awarded, nominated, and shown widely in venues, exhibitions, and festivals in Europe, USA, Canada, and Asia. And this time they bring one of their fantastic work named Deep Sensing into today's exhibition Convergence, which you can actually view them in person just outside this room. Deep Sensing is a fairly new piece of work that has firstly shown in last year, 2023. The work creates immersive experience by visualizing and sonifying solar radiation, ionosphere activities, and talking about their interrelationship with the Earth's climate. And there's a bunch of stories and context behind the scenes waiting the artist tool to demystify for us. So here we come for today's event. The artist talk from Rasa Smite and Raitis Smits. Deep Sensing and the Technical Narrative of Radiotelescopes. Please give them a big applause.
Yeah. Okay, hello. Thank you everybody for coming. I'm really happy to see you all here. Thank you for inviting us to talk, and also thank you for inviting me to be a part of this amazing exhibition here. We will be talking about deep sensing, but also because deep sensing for us is a very special project, because actually its origins are already more than 20 years ago when we started our RIXC Center in Riga, which now at the moment is very much deeply involved in trying to find work already for more than 15 years about the topic of techno-ecological paradigm, or connect different topics of nature and culture, and ecology, environment, and climate with new technologies. So, as a part of RIXC, so we are artists, but our artistic practice also includes curatorial practice. It also includes running this space in Riga, in Latvia, and also its origins, like the same with this deep sensing and telescope. It's really going back into the end of 90s, the middle of the 90s. It was the time also when finally Latvia got independent of the USSR, and so we finally had our own country with suddenly open towards the West, and we were very, very quickly, fast and pioneering active artists in the middle of the 90s, working with the art and internet radio on the internet. And so since these times we are also running our festival called, it was earlier called Art Plus Communication, now it's called RIXC Art Science Festival. Every year we are introducing new novelty topics into these fields which we think can be interesting, which are in between technologies, art science, environmental issues. Yes, so we have been following different topics as they have been developing also with the technologies and trying to contextualize them in a social context, in ecological context, in a scientific and artistic context. So yeah, so then some pictures from our festival editions. In Riga we are also collaborating with different bigger institutions. For example, this is a national library. Also this year the festival will take place there. The exhibition, green exhibition, which you saw on the first slide, so it took place in the National Art Museum. So also featuring about 20 international artworks. And also one of our recent projects, which I'd like to play also here, the first video, like 5 minutes, is about one of the projects which we are also showing last year in the festival, which was devoted to crypto, art and climate topics. But this particular project was also kind of a nice collaboration which started already during the COVID times, when we got the funding to develop the application curatorial platform called Census, exploring nature culture issues. So at first was, so we invited artists, and we are also bringing this project into our, because we are also both teaching, as you introduced, so we are also bringing this platform also for our students, so to create artworks, our former students, to work together, and this is something we also would like to develop further. So in this project, the census project, so the main idea was also how our artistic practices can be represented through different new technologies, how we could sense and experience something which is happening in real space, and how we can meaningfully capture it and transform it into digital space. And census art also, if you scan this QR code, actually you can get the app, which also you can see for downloadable these objects. They are not only site specific, you can also experience them here. So here also it was a kind of a journey throughout those COVID times when we were curating it, when these young artists, everybody was isolated, but there were places they could access, like these ponds and forests. So, and we invited German artists from Karlsruhe, Latvian artists from Riga to create this series of these artworks, so which they are developing their concepts while they were sensing and finding new interesting artifacts in the nature, and then they were transforming them into artworks. So that's RIXC developed up, but then also at the next stage we worked for Karlsruhe, which is UNESCO, which has a UNESCO Creative City status, UNESCO Media Art City. And also we were creating the series of artworks also there and presented in the city. And currently, at the moment, this project I think is also a very nice platform. Also we would like to collaborate further. We already are now discussing the collaborations for a new project together with artists in Toronto, because Toronto is also a media art city, between Toronto, then Riga and Karlsruhe, and also I'm talking now with Papa also maybe how to involve also Taipei in this project so that it could be a platform how we experience something which is happening in nature, how we communicate also the issues of environment, issues of climate change through the art. To the wider public. And augmented reality platform, it's easy accessible also through your mobile phone, so that's why this is like one of these projects which I think could be also developed. Yeah, so RIXC is running also the gallery. So where we have like more like solo exhibitions, but also like smaller projects, curated exhibitions. At the moment, we have an interactive sound and spatial sound exhibition actually in the gallery, and yeah. So I hope you know where to Raitis because he's mainly curating these exhibitions, and also he will then continue.
Yeah. Hello everybody, and yeah, thanks again for inviting us. As Rasa mentioned, one of our regular venues which is holding exhibitions is our gallery. And a little bit going backwards how we started our artistic practice and curatorial practice and also Media Art Center is when we graduated in the 90s from Art Academy in Riga. So there was no really new media art scene, no digital art scene there. And actually new media art scene has just started around the world. So, and therefore there was no scene. So we chose, being an artist, so we chose to go maybe in several directions at the same time and becoming establishers of the art center, running even administrative work in the beginning of the art center, curating exhibitions and festivals, and meanwhile also doing our own art production. So it took a lot of time, but it was worth it because now there's pretty broad art scene back in not just Riga but in Latvia in general. So there's a new media art program, and there's already almost third generation new media artists coming from that program and also from the Art Academy. And therefore, we have this gallery which is running regularly and where we're exhibiting mostly young artists, also some international artists, so it depends how it kind of goes, because it's a non-profit situation, so it's very much based on public money, so it relies on different projects. So if there are international projects, mostly art residency projects which we are running, so then there are content for the gallery coming from those international artists. Otherwise, it's funded by a local art foundation, and we can exhibit emerging young artists working in digital media from local scene. So yeah, these are a couple of slides. So gallery space is not very large, so we are also having the office and lab in the same space. The gallery is kind of very good for one solo exhibition for one artist. This is the view from our Biotricity project, which I will explain a little bit later, so which is one of our also collaborative projects with scientists. But to give you maybe a background of the thinking we are approaching, so I will give some of the quotes here so you can read, but I will not read them. So from artists who have been working with collaboratively with science already long before us. So one of them is Naum Gabos, the sculptor, very known sculptor, so which I admire very much. Also the idea that generally, simply putting it, so that artists can get inspiration from newest scientific discoveries, also from science in general, but mostly from these discoveries, from exploration, what scientists are doing. And then artists have to step back and actually think about their own means, their own ideas, and how they want to transform this inspiration into the artwork. So it's not very direct, at least how we work, it's not a direct illustration of the scientific discoveries or of scientific data. So there is very much interpretation of that. So we leave creative space for ourselves, and also we teach to our students, so to have this creative space for yourself where you can actually explore by doing, by kind of having hands-on, and by transforming these scientific ideas and discoveries into your artwork. Yeah, so and there are others, so Otto Hien, so the artist who worked in MIT in the early days, so where they established Art and Science Collaborative Center there. So, and this is kind of very, in a way, it's very direct and very also poetic in a way, but under this kind of quote, I would say that when you work as an artist, with your, in the beginning, when you have the vision, and maybe it's inspiration from science, when you have the vision for your artwork, so you can't really make it forward, you can't really finish it just thinking about it. So you have to start working and experimenting with the medium. So you need to have some skills, of course, some know-how, you have to experiment with the medium, and then there, through that process, your idea actually will get transformed quite a lot. So, yeah, and Stephen Wilson, yeah, who actually wrote quite a big book, almost like encyclopedia about information art. So he has listed all kinds of possible art, technology, art, science, artworks at that period of time when he wrote the book. So from here I want to kind of just very briefly talk about one of our projects, also collaborative between biologists and ourselves, and it's called Biotricity. And it started actually almost accidentally when we were talking to some biologists, some scientists, about the energy source, which could be not like, first of all, it had to be natural green sort of energy source from the nature, and which could be not the solar energy or wind power, but something related to the soil, because we had another idea for the project. So, and then we were looking for actually the electricity source, and they introduced us with microbial fuel cells technology. And we experimented with these fuel cells, so they work. I will explain a little bit in the next slide. And it turned out so that actually this power which you can generate with fuel cells is too weak, too low for our needs. So, but we were fascinated with the technology itself, with the process itself, and from there, so we decided to go on with this technology and create kind of independent artwork out of it. And this is like very basic diagram we were introduced with, and this is very much kind of do-it-yourself diagram for the fuel cell, where you have this two-chamber fuel cell. On one side you have a simple dirt with bacteria in there, and on the other side there's a clean water chamber, so which are connected with salt agar bridge, which works as a membrane. So there are these industrially produced membranes nowadays. You can actually buy them on fuel cell store also. But at that time they were no accessible, so we were using just agar jelly with the salt a little bit, which acted as a bridge for free proteins and electrodes. And then there are two electrodes, anode and cathode, in each of the chamber. The process goes very kind of roughly and simply saying bacteria living in the dirt, they consume organic matter, and throughout the process, free electrons get released from that organic matter. So, and those electrons, usually in nature, so they tend to be captured by oxygen molecules. So in our case, we are capturing those electrons in this chain and basically getting the electricity from those two electrodes. So it's very low power, so it's, if we talk about amperage, it's milliamps, and voltage is about from 0.5 to 1 volt maybe if you're lucky. So you can put those in chain and get a bit more power out of it. But in the beginning we saw that we will use them for sonification and also for visualization. So we created this setup with a microcontroller, which are Arduino, which transferred the electricity fluctuations into digital data, and then we used MaxMSP software to create a sound environment. Yeah, this is gallery version with two-chamber fuel cell, and then we decided to go outside, and actually we asked it, so therefore we kind of created these fuel cells indoors, but then we asked scientists, so we challenged them in a way, so can you do it outside? So, and they said, yeah, you should be able to do it. And we chose a pond, the pond which has like very thick sediment, so where you can place the electrode, the bottom electrode with the bacteria, and then the other electrode was floating on the surface. And we realized that yes, so we can get pretty stable electricity from these electrodes, and therefore, so we decided to create a sound installation and that there was an opportunity. So we were invited to create sound work in one open air exhibition in Riga Botanical Garden. So we installed those electrodes in the pond and then wired them again to microcontroller and to a computer, so, and then created this 6-channel sound installation along the path on the pond, outside the pond. From there, so I'm kind of jumping from project to project, but maybe you can also notice that these projects are very kind of long-lasting projects for ourselves, and they have different phases. So in this case, it's the same technology, and we had indoor version with two-chamber cells, and then we had an outdoor version. So in outdoor version, we also installed camera, so the webcam. So and then we also put on the top of that, we created a website where you could follow in real time the fluctuation of electricity in that pond. So from there we collected, it turned out so that this project can last. So the exhibition was only for 1 month, but we left it there for 7 months without the speakers, but just with electrodes, and we collected data. We didn't know what to do with that yet, but we said, so it's kind of interesting, let's experiment if those electrodes will last. So they lasted throughout the winter. They were not built properly for the winter, so they got destroyed on the end by the ice, because ice kind of broke the wiring system. But if you install it properly, it would work as long as it's kind of designed for. So from there we collected these images and we created a video. After that, we also had the data, so we collected data from those 6 electrodes. We created sculpture and also the large print. So where you can see these are 6 electrodes, and those are the fluctuations in a circle of the actual graph. And that's the actual graph transformed into the 3-dimensional wooden sculpture. There's another version from there. So we found out about wireless possibility of wireless transforming the electrical signal, the technology called LORNA. So, and which can transfer even up to 100 meters or even further depending on the power of transmitter. So, and we created this for Ars Electronica in 2018. So the signal was transformed to the sonification computer over the distance. And we used the moss for the source of bacteria from the actual rooftop of the building in the exhibition space in Ars Electronica. And then finally, this was installed in Berlin in Futurium Museum, where they have the exhibition about speculations, and not just speculations, about the ideas of future energy systems. And we installed these fuel cells there, and here they actually, in a chain, 6 of them, are powering small electronic clock. So this clock is not accurate, so it goes, sometimes it stops, sometimes it starts working again, sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. So it's kind of interesting in that sense also. We called it bacteria time. And here's another version of the same installation with 6 bacteria cells, and the visualization how we install it in the swamp in Latvia. So now I pass it to Rasa, and she will go into the next project, the atmospheric forest.
Okay, so from this bacteria battery was the project which we understood that yes, we should try to better understand actually also how scientists work and how artists can work with the science. And also this artistic research, which is also questioning, because we keep questioning why it is important that also artists are dealing with the same. Because simply our society is much too complex, so it has become quite clear that there is no any single discipline out there which would solve all the societal questions for us. So which means that also the scientific approach, which is based on objective and analytic observations, and is just one side of the whole picture. And if artists come in and ask different questions, which are based more on emotional, experiential, or sensual perspectives, yeah, so they might open up also maybe new next questions, so which would help us to deal, for example, with the climate issues, or at least to have some imagination, because there's no clear answer, that's for sure at the moment. And yes, and talking about these artistic methods, as you see, so we are coming from artists who are makers first. So in this making, it's called also experiential learning. So because we are not only, we think that we are very smart and that everything is happening in our heads, but actually when we open our eyes and enter this this morning, every morning, again and again, our lives, actually we are very based on all our senses are awake first. So we first perceive actually through the senses. And atmospheric forest was an interesting project because it was for first time also giving a chance, because it was to work in a research environment. So it's basically what is happening here with atmospheric forests. So all our experience in a practice. So we through this project we were transforming into research and then also feeding back into practice. So atmospheric forest is a part of a Swiss National Science Foundation project called Ecodata, Ecomedia, Ecoaesthetics. I was a researcher for 3 years, from 2017 until 2020 in Basel. And so I had this unique opportunity to work together with Swiss scientists who are already for a couple of decades are experimenting with different, they're setting up experiments and observations in a Swiss Alps, where there is a pine forest which is dying out because of drought. So basically, heavily suffering from this climate change. So what they are doing there, so just about this specific site which we were using as a starting point. So they are measuring shrinking trees because of drought. They are really shrinking. So then they are also labeling every new plant which is showing the changes in the vegetation. So maybe the new types of trees decide to grow instead of the older ones. So they're also setting up this experiment of irrigation. So they're artificially putting some water in some of these slots there in this Finwald region, and some of them they are leaving as a controls. So they are trying to make also the models about how this climate change will affect in the future, in the decades. What if the conditions will be better and if that will be artificially irrigated and what is not. So I also interviewed the scientists who were working together. So there was, for example, Andreas Riegling. So he's responsible about forest dynamics. He's leading this big research project about this field there. And they do also their own experiments, also growing these forests, and then they are even putting +5 degrees in these special chambers, and then they are seeing what the vegetation will be growing, which will be able to survive these hot temperatures. And then also this Christian Ginsler, he was a remote sensing expert, and he was also giving me the LiDAR scanners to show how to use it. And he was also saying that actually for the science, he's coming from the science, he was saying it is amazing actually what aesthetical image can say, because sometimes he's saying this image can say much more than paper of the text. Yeah, because through one image there are much more layers you can maybe read. And finally, Arthur Gessler, the other scientist with whom I was working, he's more expert, and he's doing these experiments also with volatile emissions and different kinds. He tries to understand these more complex relations in forest ecosystems. In this particular, thinking about this forest, thinking about these conditions, how the forest is affected by climate change, and also trying to connect with our previous interests. So the main question here was what kind of technologies and artistic means we need for revealing these connections or these interactions which exist in a forest which is affected by climate change and the atmosphere. So basically warming climate. So how these complex relations we could reveal and visualize. Yeah. So for me it was it seemed. It seems that we kind of I think often have this very reduced idea that we need plants because they are giving us oxygen. Of course they do, but we don't know that they are also often breathing themselves, literally breathing. It's not a metaphor I'm using. So in the nights they sometimes are consuming this oxygen and releasing back CO2, even sometimes up to 20%, and scientists can't explain why. And also they are giving they are emitting extremely large amounts of volatile emissions. Not all forests, not all trees do it, but for example, this pine tree does it because and there is also a link between these emissions, a fragrant forest, because these volatile organic emissions is what we experience as a habitual smell of the pine trees, not only pine trees, also other trees, yes, and also how these emissions reach out into the atmosphere. So I will show a little bit the explanation because this is happening very, very fast, and there is not really precise measurement tools for measuring, to understanding. That's why the scientists themselves are saying, so there is this link between the forest emissions and warming climate. But how exactly it is happening, and is it affecting negatively or positively? This is unknown. And for us as artists, this seems the most interesting part of something unknown, because this is where art can come in and make their own imaginative, new experiences of this, what is happening now. Yeah, so this complexity, I started with this project also with the field research, what I was briefly mentioning, because living means first and foremost to look, taste, feel or smell the world around us. So because it's not only cognitive processes, it's definitely essential as well, so how we are embodied in the environment which we sense. So that's Emmanuel Kochin, the theorist. So I was also trying, and this making process, when I was collecting the resins in this forest, when I was melting them, and I was distilling them, pouring also cold water on a hot tube, I was obtaining some drops of a turpentine and also transforming it into colophonium. Basically, I needed to put the hands on something which they call these volatile emissions. They are coming because trees are producing resin, because resin through the barks of the trees and leaves, needles, are emitting into the atmosphere. But through that's colophonium, which violin players use or dancers use against the slippery floors. So that's anymore not sticking. So basically, how this chemistry, how big genius are the trees and plants at all, how in transforming thin air into these very complex chemistries. This is quite amazing. So what we did, okay. So what we did, we also used the scientific LiDAR scanner. Then we were scanning the forest structures there in Finland, in Swiss Alps, and then we were also. So this is, for example, LiDAR scan. It also is overlaid with a GV image, but mainly it contains a 10 million of dots, really precise, really. Very, very beautiful, like 360 picture, and it was the scientific scanner. Of course, we have this also these days in our iPhones, but this simply was a bit better resolution, and also it took about, I don't know, almost 50 meters in the diameter, this scan. So we also selected of all the data which were available, which scientists were using, we were selecting the ones which are showing this visualizations or emissions, and so then we are the air temperature as a data we were overlaying to the structure of the forest. So in this visualization you will briefly see sometimes the forest is changing from dark to white, and then it goes into red when it's very, very hot, when it's above +30. And then we used this data from emissions to create these animated particles, which were showing this dynamics of generation of the resin inside the tree barks, and also how it already as a volatile emission to go outside, and then it interacts with the other processes like humidity in the air. Yeah, so all over. Yeah, this work was shown last year here. So how I was curating, and it consists of 5 scenes. It is 17 minutes long, and we will put now you have to play it 1 minute.
video is from installation view. There are like two versions of it. There's a video version, 2-channel video version, and there's a virtual reality version. So this is documentation from the exhibition of the 2-channel version.
And now after atmospheric forest, we also were invited, we were commissioned by Latvian Contemporary Art Center to create a project about, how they would call it, post-social ecology. So they did some, looking back into these times and how it affected ecologies of the Soviet times. And then we were thinking about let's go and revisit our radio telescopes, where we organized the symposium 20 years ago. But this time, the thing is that the time has also again changed, and this, for us, it was 20 years ago. It was an amazing communication device which was top secret, and now it was just available because Soviet army left. And so it was available for civilian, scientific, and even artistic use. So then these days we are again like Bruno Latour and Peter Weibel with their exhibition, their last exhibition, Critical Zones. So they suggested that actually we again are in times when our idea about the Earth is changing because of the climate change, because of ecological and environmental issues. And that's why the Bruno Latour is also saying so, that this idea of how we position the Earth is changing. So with this idea in mind, how we again change this positioning Earth, and also thinking about this radio telescope, which is a big you see it, and you see, maybe you saw maybe in the exhibition, but it was also for us and everybody, which is built, this radio telescope is built in 1970s, which means it's really a symbol of this space conquest which happened. So all the ideas, so how we will live on Mars or Moon, whatever. So and all these big ideas of the 20th century. So when we finally, Bruno Latour is asking us, let's finally live on Earth. Let's lend back. So we were in this tension between how and what is happening now in a deep science research, but how this also could benefit maybe for a climate research. So and this was at the core of our next project of deep sensing. So we were trying to think of these patterns between the interaction of solar emissions which are affecting the ionosphere, and then they interact with the Earth data, like wind, for example, or other meteorological data.
Yeah, this project probably, which is called now Deep Sensing, at that time it started as a RT-32 acoustic space lab, probably is one of the longest projects of ours. And as Rasa mentioned, we started in 2001. That was the time when we discovered actually this site, this huge antenna, which was top secret military object before, and which was built in the 70s. And this is the radio telescope of generation, of the old generation from late 60s, early 70s, and those kind of telescopes were built all around the Soviet Union to accomplish and to communicate with space missions, as well as do some scientific work on space exploration, as well as do some secret military espionage work. So that's why nobody from regular citizens knew about this object. So it was far on the on the west side of Latvia, almost at the coast of sea, and this area was closed for citizens to visit. After our Soviet army withdrew, so this wasn't, for a short period of time, wasn't clear, so whether they will destroy it or whether they will kind of make negotiations with local scientists and will leave it. So fortunately, local scientists and government did negotiate, and these objects, there were two of them, 32 and 16 meter diameter antennas, so they were left for local scientists. They of course were demolished, and first 3 or 4 years, so it took for scientists to basically repair them and make them in working condition again. So we, of course, it was a very exciting object, so you could kind of go there, you could climb up there and see the actual, how big it is, and at the same time how precisely it is made. So the actual dish nowadays, it's kind of seems maybe fine. Yeah, we can do it pretty easily. But remember, this is built in the early 70s, and the actual dish is constructed from aluminum plates, which have to be laid down in very precise parabolic shape, and those plates as metal, so they, even though we have pretty kind of medium climates, so still in the daytime they expand and in the nighttime they shrink a little bit. So this to get kind of the same, almost the same temperature while it was constructed, so it was done during the nighttime at a certain period of night, so that all the nights were, in the daytime they didn't do anything, so that otherwise it wouldn't be the same kind of, that will lose the precision of the actual dish. So and we got lucky to collaborate with scientists at that time, so we just went there and we kind of met them, and they started to talk about this idea, and they were very open to collaborate with in the beginning, because of course they were also open to any kind of publicity, any kind of help. And we decided, as we worked with internet radio and streaming media at that time, so we decided to do streaming media and acoustic space symposium there. So we invited about 20 different people from our network. Those were artists, those were radiometers, those were theoreticians, different kind of people. And we came together. No one of us knew about radio astronomy at all. So we had to discuss and talk with those scientists, and fortunately they were open to spend time with us. And our idea was not just to capture it on the video or photograph it, but actually our idea was to use it as a tool, as an artistic tool. So how can we use this enormous dish to create sound, for instance? Because when you receive signal from outer space, it goes way out of the reach of the audible frequencies, so you can't hear anything from those signals. So we actually got help from those scientists, and they built the chain of apparatus which stepped down the frequencies to the audible range. Of course, it was kind of pretty quickly done, and there was lots of equipment noise on the background in this audible signal, but it was more kind of inspirational for us, and it was kind of first hands-on how to work with it and what to do with it. So another idea was to use this large antenna as a performance object. So which we kind of realized later in our deep sensing project. So, but it wasn't possible at that time really, but the idea was born. So, and yeah, we ended up with creating a DVD, and I will play you a very short excerpt from that DVD. In poor quality, it's a DVD quality, I'm sorry, but it had two parts, this DVD, and it's online on our Vimeo site. It's available for public. So it has, first part is about history of the radio telescope. We did a little research about it, and we even went to Moscow to talk with the astronomers there. So they didn't tell much about it because they were afraid to kind of unveil some secrets, military secrets. So basically we held interviews with local scientists mostly. And yeah, and then the second part of the DVD is about actual symposium, how we used it as a tool for creating a sound experience. And here's, yeah, just the beginning of the video.
Since 1994, Latvian scientists of the RIXC International Radio Astronomy Center are undergoing the process of restoring damage to the abandoned antennas and transforming them from military to scientific purposes. To explore the antenna's potential for civilian and artistic use, an International Acoustic Space Lab Symposium for sound art using radio and satellite technologies took place in August of 2001 at the site of the RT-32.
So today, the large dish and also the smaller one, they both are restored, and scientists are working there kind of full time. So the first symposium we had was with this large group of 20 people working there. So it was very unique time, which was pointed out also very well by Marko Peljka, an artist, who said that we are here in this gray zone when military have left and scientists hasn't really arrived yet. So it was very short period, so we're kind of artists and different people like us, so could go there and actually use it as a tool. So nowadays it's of course much more regulated, so we had an idea to collaborate with the RIXC and establish art residency program there, but now there's again different regulations coming into play, so and it has been kind of cancelled, but we'll see if we can kind of prolong with it. So we have very good personal relationship with those scientists, so therefore we were able to go there 3 years ago or 2 years ago and actually work there and even scan it with a drone, which is not really allowed there, so you have to have permissions because any kind of radio signal do disturb the observations what they do. So they also rent out time for other scientists around the world to access this telescope online and basically do the scanning which you as a scientist you have to do with your project. So I put also a couple of kind of detailed things about how we built up the deep sensing project. From the visual part, the main kind of visual object is the radio telescope itself and the surrounding around it. So we did a photogrammetry, pretty rough, but there's not many images as you see, but it's detailed enough for our purpose. So, and this is a photogrammetry scan, then there's a point cloud image from point cloud object from that scan created. And then after that, so we used game engine Unity to actually visualize it and also to build these scenes from the 3D telescopes. So in the deep sensing work, it has 3 versions by now. One is one-channel version, just with the one telescope rotating. Then we built last year immersive work for 15 projectors in MEET Center in Milan, and that was on 3 walls. And these are little close-ups. So this is from the MEET Center. This is actually the model. First, we built a model to get an idea how this will look in the real space, and this was also done built in Unity. But and then this is the actual photo from that space in reality. There is a soundtrack, and there's these different scenes of radio telescope point cloud moving along the camera, or cameras going through the field of telescopes, virtual telescopes. We are using for visual effects, for brightness, the luminosity, and also the color scheme. We are using data sets we got from scientists, which is solar observation, ionosphere activity, and the movement of actual dish. So all those data sheets which they record, then basically you get a CSV file with the numbers, with the columns and numbers. So we incorporated them in the project to control the visuals, and also we created the sound using the Sonic Pi program using these data sets to create a soundtrack for the work. So these are some slides from MEET, from that space, and this is from exhibition here. And I think I would like to end with this, our presentation. Here are some books which we publish every year, and we will leave one with Bochau, so you can take a look later. This is a collection of essays on certain topics. The latest one is on Green Revisited, and that's all. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your perfect and variety and full of contents sharing. So I think it's time for us to entering the Q&A session. So during this session, you may just raise your hand to show some questions or any feedbacks. Not just questions. Maybe you have any feelings or thoughts during this whole hour of sharing. You could tell with us, tell with the artist. So if anyone would like to start. Sure.
Let me raise the first question. So I would like to ask, what do you expect audience to feel when they are experiencing this kind of immersive field project like deep sensing or the atmospheric forest? How do you expect them to react and respond to this kind of project?
Yeah, so this question is a bit challenging question because we would like to ask this to audience what they feel, and this we are asking often also because it's an artwork and not a design project and not even proposal for some solution. So it leaves this open. I hope our audience feels that there are many open-ended questions, kind of, that which would leave maybe a space for imagination. But what we really wanted was that the audience there would be evoking some emotions around these topics through being like immersed or embodied into this virtual forest. And seeing the processes, which we have no idea much actually how exactly they work, but there's something is happening, and I hope audience can feel this.
Maybe I can add a little bit. Like for atmospheric forest, as I mentioned already, there are two versions. There's virtual reality version, which is like for the audience, it's more immersive than video work. So, of course, we can discuss on it, but generally it is so. And when you use virtual reality, when you see virtual reality version, so then you have more feel kind of being inside the forest, where having it on the screen, it's more kind of, there's you and there's kind of distance between you and screen. However, I also want to emphasize that very important part of the work is sound for both works, or for all the works we've done. So, therefore, I think the sound also creates sort of emotional response, or yeah, it depends on, again, on how you look at it. So, but the sound is not kind of technical. In most of the works we did, so we use data sets as for visualization, as also for sonification. But it's not as instrumental as it might sound. So we use it just as a content, but actually we leave pretty much space for ourselves for interpretation. So when we create that or another scenery, first we look at it as an artist and kind of feel whether it fits or not. So it's not kind of direct illustration. Therefore, I hope that the audience kind of gets this feedback also, so this sort of emotional, in a way, feeling of it.
Sorry, I forgot to add and may I use in Mandarin? 所以如果你们有想问的问题，但是是用中文的话也可以。So I can do the translation for you. So if any of us that would like to raise any topics or.
I have a quick question about deep sense. I can probably share on it. So you said that you use drones to fly around the dish. What sort of sensors did you use to map the depth and model the dish on the drone?
It was no sensors, so I used. It was just a drone. So where we programmed the trajectory around the telescope, and then we used the photographs from camera, and then afterwards with the photogrammetry software. So.
Thank you.
So any other questions? Or maybe I'll raise one. I have a lot of Yeah, so yeah, basically my main curiosity is about like how do you separate your work and professions as an artist too. I think your collaboration between you two is a long-term relationship, but I'm still quite curious about like, but it seems like there's a lot of work during your like various projects, like research part or the art making part. There's a lot of stages in each of your projects, so I'm kind of would like to know more about your like how do you separate these works by two of you. And for the further questions, like this is a question more for like younger artists, because as I mentioned, there's more and more artists are willing to deal with certain like practical or practices with science issues, but since you two work as a duo, do you recommend younger artists to find like their colleagues and workers togetherly, or like you don't have any? Maybe you could do it independently. Is it also okay? I would like to hear more about it.
Thank you. Really good questions. Yeah. So we don't. Yeah, we don't separate. So then see again, it's really a very long answer. But the thing is that we are coming from very different background than maybe artists today, which means first of all we have been living first our years, and we started even studies in art academy when it was still Soviet Union. So it was very, very different. All political, cultural, economic situation, everything was very different. And then suddenly internet comes, which is completely like a highest manifestation of Western liberalism, let's say. And this comes on top of all this, all those other ideas which were just now abandoned because the country becomes independent now. So and suddenly this, but we were among those artists who never was interested in making their work individually. We were of those who were interested to communicate. And then internet was such a perfect medium. We were immediately excited about it. We knew we should establish Electronic Arts Laboratory, which later we transformed into RIXC Center. We knew. So we involved so many people. And this was the time when we believed in collaborations. So that's why we didn't separate. This was only later with the time we realized that collaborations in art world honestly don't work. Because even in our first acoustic space, when we made a DVD, if you would see, we were almost like in Hollywood movies. We were crediting about 200 participants who were involved this. So we always were thinking about that there's something interesting with such an interesting medium, which is communication medium, as internet, that could become a different way how to make art, which would be collaborative. And that's why we never had this separation, But of course the roles become, so we somehow with Raitis we work together so long, also that we also intuitively always feel, okay, I do more there with research, for example, with atmospheric forest, or with our new project now, Plants Intelligences, but Raitis keeps experimenting with all artistic aesthetic tools, for example, so we are making sound for the final, together. So we try to see what's necessary to do more like in this way. And
so like more organic ways to
yeah, that's how we started. And we were thinking that there can be more than just individual names in art possible, but honestly it's not possible in art, because we had so great many collaborations, and after a while you realize that just people continue doing this, but actually it was initially your idea, including in Wikipedia, what is locative media, there is everything else credited. However, we were often coining terms, doing workshops, inviting people, and really making new discourses around it. Yeah, but then later it turns out somehow that we are hiding, somewhere. Yeah. So
however, about the collaboration, in our case, it's very different. So there are quite a few or some examples in art world. So where actually couples are doing the same project. So we have like Woody and Steina Vasukas, and we have other artists who are couples, and it just kind of turns out so in that way. So, but that's one thing. So the other thing, if you are individual artist and you need collaborators, so I would suggest in the very beginning to make very clear rules about who is doing what and whose role is what. So when you come up with the one art project, so then it's very clear who has done what and who are the authors. Basically it's about authorship. So because if it's done in kind of friendly sort of group of kind of workshop thing, so then it can stay there, but some artists might, of course, take these ideas and develop further. So, and then it becomes unclear. So, about the authorship in such. So it has to be made pretty clear in the beginning. So we have had some throughout our gallery. We have had some in residency programs, some good collaborations where artists come collaborate with musicians, for instance. But that's pretty clear format. So artist does the artwork, so and then musicians create the sound, or composers. Yeah. The other part is collaborating with
and the medium also with all the philosopher Raitis Smits has said that experiments, at least scientific experiments, but so that's basically the experiment is not about the nature or essence of the object, reveal the essence of the nature of the object, but it is about the medium through which these messages are conveyed to us. So, and in our work, it always has been really critical, because it's not only the medium. Maybe in the beginning, internet was fascinating, but we were not interested to make internet art. We were immediately using it to convey our ideas of disconnectedness. So we created this internet radio network. So invited many people from different parts of the world to do together streaming session, to mix each other's channels. So yeah, that's about medium.
Yeah, I can just maybe add a little bit, so that first of all, when we work with, and we've been working with digital technology since very beginning, we started to collaborate. We always sort of keep our eye on development of those technologies. But there, of course, there are many directions how they develop, and then we have to match the existing technology, so which we want to work with the ideas we want to show in the work. So mainly in the beginning, it's kind of all together. So, but the main sort of beginning, I would say, is an idea. But the idea is not just kind of idea in your head, which comes out of, I don't know, reading books or something. It can be observations. But the idea also can come out of the experiments with particular technology. And not just with pure experiments, you are not isolated. So you, of course, when you work with AI today, you read many opinions about AI. So you read about what other artists do with AI. You read about AI development, so what other scientists tell. So there are very optimistic point of views, and there are very skeptical point of views. And from there, you can actually accumulate this situation right now, and then you come up with the idea through the experimenting with the tool. When you experiment with it, so one approach of ours is actually to see if we can, there is an approach which some artists say you subvert technology, so which kind of pretty old ones starting from the internet and even long before that, so it's experimental film and so on. So you subvert it in a way so that no one has kind of intended to use it, which is not our case. So we try to maybe explore it in a level in which we kind of not much, but deeper level than it is used kind of and proposed to use by industry or developers. So, and we try to see if there is this, it's hard to kind of put in words, so if there is this kind of intangible artistic potential in that or another technology, which is suitable for our ideas and for us as an artist. So, but that's difficult to explain. So you probably have to find your own way going through that and seeing and not being afraid of being kind of a little bit outsider or individual and not doing that like everybody is doing. So it took for us quite a time actually to realize that we kind of have to rely more and more on our own feelings, on our own ideas, and not just look around what others are doing. It takes time, yeah, to kind of get to this realization, but that's the I think the main basis you can rely on. So it's very important. Otherwise, it's kind of very shaky and yeah.
Yeah, I think the response is really amazing and inspiring. Since I think a lot of like artists about how they see like new technologies. I think your interpretation through it to focusing on the like media, like a material, like when traditional artists they're using their paints and their like cloths to making stuff. So you're saying that the new technology is like one of the media that you have to really focusing on the essence or like the function, how they applied it to your like actual work or like the issue that you really care about. I think that's the main thing that we have to take concern. Yeah, so yeah, really appreciate that. And I think that goes into the end of the event today. And so let's give them applause again to thank them for the really amazing show. And before we actually go out to see the work, maybe we could have a group photo with the audience today, if you would like to. So maybe you could sit, yeah, in the